Well, we're in Camp Hill, Alabama.
Tallapoosa County, Alabama. That's a cool name, huh?
It is.
And Camp Hill, Alabama has about 900 people. So once again, we come to a small town where our local cops, in this case, Chief Roosevelt Finley and Lieutenant Nathan White, are in charge of all the investigations for every kind of crime committed.
They're wearing a lot of hats.
On February the 21st, 2005, Miss Willie Louise Kellum, who was 78 years old, was murdered in her own house. She was found strangled to death. The very first law enforcement officer that made the scene that night was Chief Finley, who knew the victim.
To find her that way was very disturbing to me, very.
To think that something like that happened on your watch and was probably committed by someone that you know very well.
I'm just telling you, I don't remember.
You want to do all that you can to solve it.
We know you can't remember anything. Hell, you've been smoking crack, pot, and every damn thing else.
I think that the chief, in his whole town of people that he wants to protect and keep safe, who would he want to keep safe more than Miss Louise? Nobody.
She's the victim. Remember that.
The DA here said that if we make enough progress this week and he thinks he has enough evidence to convict, he can actually call a special grand jury in and have them indict the case.
Well, if we were to get some good results back from the lab, then maybe that's something he would do.
Because the police were so thorough, there was a lot of physical evidence collected from this case, including a rape kit and the victim's clothing, but unfortunately, they didn't have the financial resources to have it all tested.
I swear, till the day you die, you're going to be hoping for those lab results. Aren't you?
Yes, of course.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Good
How are
morning.
you all doing?
Yolanda
I'm
McClary.
Kelly. Nice to meet you. We're excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have y'all.
Y'all, this is Dee Dee Shirley.
Nathan White.
Dee Dee Shirley, glad to meet you, Nathan.
This week, for the first time, we're bringing in Dee Dee Shirley. He's a retired homicide cop from the Houston Police Department. He has more experience than probably any homicide detective that's ever been through HPD. He's a great cop. Willie Louise Kellum. Did you know Willie?
Knew her real well.
What was she known as around town?
Miss Louise. Miss Louise was a friend of mine. She was a kind, sweet, considerate person. When she was killed, I was shocked, and I had to ensure that the person responsible for her death would be captured.
Tell us what happened that night.
Back around February the 21st, 2005, I responded to a call regarding a person that was down at a residence off of Thompson Street. I arrived there on the scene. I met her grandson, Douglas. So I immediately told him to stay on the outside of the residence. As I entered into the house, I could see clearly that she had a cord wrapped around her neck and she was partially clothed. As I began to check out the house and turned the corner to go into another room, as I turned the corner, I felt, your hair stand up on the back of your neck, and there was Douglas. My finger was on the trigger, and I asked him, "What the hell are you doing in here?" And it was as though he was watching me to see what I was going to observe. From that point, I notified dispatch to come there to assist me.
And why do we think she was raped?
Her blouse was pulled up.
Blouse is pulled
Her
up.
one leg of her pants were pulled down.
Yeah.
What happened to the rape kit?
We was able to get the rape kit and get it sent to the lab.
Everything was perfect, sealed, as it was 8 years ago.
I'm really hoping that DNA will be able to give us some answers, because whoever raped her is probably the only person who has a real motive to want to kill her. So prove the rape, prove the murder.
Well, in trying to figure out why someone would want to kill a 78-year-old woman and possibly rape her, what are the motives for wanting to do that?
Drugs.
Drug money?
Yes.
Look at your crime scene, too. You've got that little, the black, Brinks little box. Maybe she kept something in there.
This box
It's right in the middle of all of this.
Okay, so let's put our suspects up now. Okay, so we're going to put up our main suspect, Douglas Freeman. Doug Freeman is the victim's grandson. He lived with her at the time, and he's the one who reported finding the body to 911.
Douglas did this same type of behavior towards his mother. Very violent. This is a pattern with him.
Okay.
He finds her. I mean, he's first one there.
Because he was sleeping there, living there at that time,
Yes.
right? Do you think a grandson could rape his grandmother? I don't know. But the grandson's the one that knew about any money that was in the house.
How about the fact that the murder weapon is his?
Yeah, that's good.
The court.
No solid alibi.
Doug gave a statement saying that he was at work from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., so it's possible that he came home from work, got into an argument with his grandmother, and then that argument got out of control.
He gets home at 10:10. He walks in the door at 10:11, 10:12. They argue at 10:15. She can be dead by 10:16 or 17, really and truthfully.
Miss Louise's time of death has never been confirmed, and determining when the murder occurred is going to become crucial in solving this case. If Miss Louise died close to 10 o'clock p.m., then her grandson, Douglas, will have no alibi for this murder.
So here's Eric Freeman.
Now, Eric, we know he was staying there too, but Eric was in and out staying with his girlfriend.
And what kind of criminal history does Eric have? Is he as bad
Eric
as Douglas?
just got out of prison for robbery.
It's not like all of Miss Louise's kids and grandkids had a criminal history, but Doug and Eric were a couple of slugs. Eric Freeman has an alibi that he was at work until 2:30 p.m., but he could have committed his grandmother's murder after that. Also, phone records show that on that day, there were some phone calls made to Miss Louise's house from Eric's girlfriend's house, so it could have been that she was trying to get a hold of Eric at the house during the time of the murder. So the last person we're going to put up on the board is Markis Heard.
He's a sick individual because he's involved in molestation of his own child. His name came up through the course of a statement from someone about him making a phone call, allegedly.
Markis Heard got on our radar for one reason. During the time of the murder, a phone call was made from Miss Louise's house to another house in town belonging to the Todd family. The Todds weren't acquainted with Miss Louise, but they believed that the call could have come from Markis Heard because at that time he was dating their daughter and they got calls all the time from him.
Markis Heard has an alibi for a time frame during that day, and he also has no known connection to the victim or the family, which is making him less likely a suspect.
Chief, if you could take us out to meet the family, we need to talk to him.
I'm ready.
We are going to meet two of Miss Louise's daughters. Joanne is the oldest daughter, and Cameron is the baby. Well, Joanne was the one who lived here back then, who knows the reality of her mom's life around the time this murder happened. She's had a stroke. I'm worried that it might affect her memory.
Hey, Cameron.
How are you?
Doing? Come here, girl. It's good to see you.
Hi, Kelly. Kelly.
Nice to meet you.
As I told you before, I knew your mother personally, you know, but I told you we was not going to give up.
You did.
Tell us about her.
She's a great mom.
Strict.
She was the kind of mother that you got nothing over on.
She's shaking her head over there. So we have just a couple of questions to try and jog your memory, okay? Do you know whether or not right in the immediate days before she was murdered, she cashed a check or came into any money or got a deposit or anything like that?
I think she got her income tax.
How much was it?
She wouldn't tell me.
Have you ever talked to your nephews about that night, finding her and all that? Mm-hmm. Who'd you talk to?
Doug.
Okay.
He said he found Mama. She was,
It's okay.
Take your time, dear. Take your time, dear.
You know, he might have told you something that's important. That's the only reason I'm asking you, okay? It might be some little thing that helps us.
Take your time, dear. Take your time, dear.
You know, he might have told you something that's important. That's the only reason I'm asking you, okay? We are in Camp Hill, Alabama, investigating the 2005 rape and murder of 78-year-old Louise Kellum. We've started our investigation by talking to two of the victim's daughters. We're hoping that they can tell us more about the murder and any involvement that her grandsons might have had in her death.
he said when he found Mama, she was at the foot of the bed. She didn't have on no clothes. She just had a shirt around her neck.
What does that tell you, Joanne? What are you thinking?
Most people in the town think somebody in the family did it.
Who do you think did it?
I don't know if Doug did it.
Okay.
Did you know Doug was living there?
No.
You didn't know that? Why didn't he stay with his own mother?
Because they couldn't get along with each other.
Would you call him violent?
When he's drinking, yes. Check out all that family.
I mean, Chief's never given up. That's why we're here. We're going to do everything that we can, and I hope we can give y'all some answers.
Okay.
It just breaks your heart to think about a family torn apart by an event like this. Even Joanne thinks it's possible that the grandsons were involved. Miss Louise's grandson, Doug, is the one who discovered the body, so taking a look at the crime scene can tell us whether or not his actions were suspicious that night.
I guess this fits the description of a deserted house.
Oh, yeah.
You got your snake repellent on?
I'm upset about a live chicken and a dead hero.
The crime scene in this case is Miss Louise's house, which is located in Camp Hill. The house has been long since abandoned, so we're all on edge as we're approaching this crime scene.
He's jumping already. We hope that by further investigating the crime scene, we can get a little more insight into the murderer and the murder.
In the picture, she actually had like a little table right here on the corner.
The table and the broom handle were out here.
Both parts were
In
there.
close proximity right there.
Doug stated that he didn't have a key to the house, and that's probably because his grandmother didn't really trust him. When he got there, the door was locked, a light was on. He beat on the door, Granny didn't answer, so he used a broom handle to try and pry open the door. And why would you use a broom handle when it's about this big around to get into a door that's like this tightly shut? This doesn't make any sense.
He says he tried one piece of it and then tried the other. It was already broken.
Okay.
To get in.
Once inside, Doug claims to have called out for his grandmother and got no response. When he turned the lights on, he found her on the ground in his room.
Is this the bedroom?
This is the bedroom.
Okay.
This is where she was discovered.
Our victim is found actually sitting on the floor, kind of leaning up against that.
And you're in the
bed.
spot where she was? Okay.
Yeah.
So when he comes in,
there's no doubt he would see her.
All right.
Absolutely not.
Okay. In Doug's statement, he claims to have found his grandmother lying unconscious on the floor in his bedroom. Because he was unable to find the phone, he claims he went to a nearby gas station to call 911.
The position that she's found in is where she was when she was strangled. The cord was wrapped around the victim's neck twice and then brought up from behind, tied, and pulled up. Miss Louise was strangled with a cord from a set of headphones. The headphones belonged to Doug, and the murder occurred in Doug's room. All the cord is coming up, which would say the person's probably behind her on the bed. Part of her pant leg actually swings over the box, so the box is there first.
That means that box was opened before the assault happened. Thinking the rape was an afterthought of the robbery.
It's control, it's anger, or humiliation. If she wouldn't up the money or simply didn't have any more.
That's a really sick person. If
It's
you're looking
sick.
into the eyes of your own grandmother and doing that, that's a special kind of sick. Yep. Y'all ready to go?
Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Ready.
Clear.
In the afternoon on the day she was murdered, Miss Louise was seen running errands around town. One piece of evidence no longer at the crime scene is the car Miss Louise drove around town. I think it's worth checking out. Evidence that seemingly did not have much meaning at the time of the murder could provide us with some new information today. Luckily, the PD in Camp Hill kept all the evidence intact, including Miss Louise's car.
She was going to do laundry that day.
Yep.
You should be unlocked already.
Yeah. This car is just as it was 8 years ago.
Western Union.
It's like going through a time capsule of Miss Louise's final moments.
Oh, my goodness. Laundry. That's what she did that day.
Miss Louise was last seen grocery shopping around 2 p.m., but witness statements said that she had planned on stopping at the laundromat on her way home.
These don't smell like food. It smells like bleach. She doesn't take them out of the car.
She had groceries.
Okay.
She took her groceries in first.
So she walked into the house with groceries and stuff she bought, but never made it back out to her car for the laundry. Tends to make me want to believe intruder happened right after that, or maybe was even waiting for her. If Miss Louise could not make it back out to her car to retrieve her clean laundry, that would indicate she was murdered possibly in the late afternoon and not at 10 p.m. at night. If we could narrow in on the time of death, we can figure out which one of our suspects has an alibi or which one doesn't.
We're starting to believe that the rape and murder of 78-year-old Louise Kellum happened sometime in the afternoon of February the 21st, 2005. Once we can focus in on her time of death, we can try and determine which of our suspects have alibis for that particular time. Hello?
Hey, how are you?
Retired Detective Bobby Blake was one of the first investigators to join Chief Finley the night of the murder. What time did you get there?
I don't remember the exact time.
But her body was still there when you got there?
Yes, ma'am. I helped the state examiner remove her body from the house.
Do you remember anything about her being in rigor?
She was slightly.
There's not that many ways to be able to determine exact time of death. But one of the ways is through rigor mortis, which is the stiffening of the muscles, which starts in 3 to 4 hours after death.
I just remember when we tried to lay her flat on the gurney, that she was just slightly stiff.
Wow. Well, now we know that. Now we're getting somewhere. Bobby Blake says there was stiffness in the body, and the degree of stiffness does help to estimate the time elapsed.
If she's stiff enough to tell, then that means it's been longer than 3 to 4 hours, because it starts in the jaw and the neck and the face muscles after 3 to 4 hours.
So you're talking about like if she was like this, when you go to put her on the gurney, you had to...
We had to flatten her out.
Okay, but that would be right, say 8 hours later.
Yeah, 8 hours later.
Okay. The medical examiner arrived to remove Miss Louise's body around midnight. Based on the degree of her rigor, it would appear that she was probably murdered sometime between 4 and 7 p.m., right after she returned from the laundromat. Problem is, it seems our main suspect, Doug, has an alibi for that time.
I would love for Douglas to be the suspect, but he went to work, correct, at Nexel at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So how can he do it if he's...
How can he do it if he's at work? We have witnesses that saw him on and off all night inside the plant.
So he's really at work.
And he clocks out.
If we feel pretty sure that Doug Freeman committed this crime, we're going to have to figure out how he's not at work, if he's not at work.
If it's going to be Douglas, we're going to have to completely tear down the alibi of his work.
Right.
We need to track down Doug Freeman and his brother Eric to try and confirm their alibis for the time that we've discovered that their grandmother was killed. Doug has been missing in action lately, probably because he's got 5 arrest warrants out for him for other crimes. Chief Finley knows that Doug often stays at his mother Geraldine's house, so that's where we're going to look for him first. You want me to stay here?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. How you doing?
What'd you stay here?
I want to talk to you about your mother.
Oh.
We need to talk to Doug.
I don't know where he is right now.
Hey, Sidney, how you doing? Can you come outside? You're not under arrest. Trust me.
This is about Granny.
It's about Granny.
When Chief Finley got inside Geraldine's house, Doug wasn't there, but other family members who we think really might have information were there. It's always better strategically to interview everyone separately.
You been doing okay?
I've been trying to make it. How about yourself?
Well, I've been trying to make it. And this thing about your grandmother really bothered me.
Yeah.
Your mom's not doing so well, huh?
Yeah, she just had a stroke.
Wow. And your mom is in what kind of shape? I didn't know that.
She's doing fair.
She's not doing that great. Sidney Freeman is another brother to Eric and Doug Freeman. He's the oldest. He's the most responsible today and was very cooperative to all of the initial investigators.
Who are you, ma'am? Crystal. What's your last name?
Ferris.
Crystal Ferris. What's your relationship to her?
I used to date her son.
Which one?
Doug.
Is Doug here?
No.
Okay. I know Doug was a suspect in this when it happened, but it would be extremely helpful if we could talk to Doug about it.
Okay.
Would you feel comfortable going out the car and talking to me?
Sure.
Okay. How long ago did you date Doug?
We were together for 8.5 years.
8.5 years? Okay.
I mean, we're still talking and everything, but we're just not together. We're taking a break, I guess.
Where is he now?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. No.
Has Doug ever made any admissions to you about being involved in it?
No. I've asked him. I said, well, baby, I said, be honest with me. I said, did you have anything to do with it, or do you know anything about it? And he said no. And
no.
I believe him.
Okay.
Chrissy, I know you're lying about one little thing. I know you can get a hold of Doug. Okay? I know it. We need to talk to Doug.
Okay.
Okay?
If somebody were to ask you right now, who do you think hurt and killed your grandma, what would you say?
I heard of Markis Heard because I heard that he had made a phone call on my grandma's phone.
And what'd that make you think?
I mean, it made me think that he might have had something, I knew something about it.
Do you know Markis Heard? Have you heard the name?
No, that was him, man.
And something else I didn't...
Eric.
Eric?
That's the other one.
We're in luck because our other main suspect, Eric Freeman, just walked up into the middle of our investigation.
Right there.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric. Hold on a minute.
We're at the home of Jerry Lynn Freeman in Camp Hill, Alabama, investigating the 2005 rape and murder of 78-year-old Louise Kellum. And Eric Freeman, one of our main suspects, just walked right up to the house.
Hey, Eric. Hold on a minute.
Eric, who does have a violent criminal prior, has an alibi up until 2:30 that day, and we know that our murder happened sometime between 4:30 and 7, so we need to account for the rest of that day. On top of that, there are several unexplained calls to the home of Miss Kellum from Eric Freeman's girlfriend.
Tell me what you remember about your grandmother's case.
Well, I tried calling her because she was taking me back and forth to work. I called that night because I was going back down there because my current girl, Tanya, ex-wife, we was in disagreement and I was trying to go back down there.
How many times you called?
Probably like 2 or 3 because I kept getting a voicemail, which was unusual.
The day of the murder, there are 6 calls from a number that comes back to Tanya Philpott.
That's it.
It seems like she's calling like 649, 649, 650, 651.
Nah, I'm calling the house. I'm staying with Tanya in Western Crossing Trailer Park.
Okay.
So I was trying to call my grandma to get down there.
Thank you. And she never answered.
Nah, and that's why I was trying. I didn't know she had a voicemail until that day.
You never thought over the years, Eric, that she was already dead by then?
I was thinking back, I was like, damn, doing that whole time that...
Okay, take your time.
Yeah, I was thinking it the whole time. I called. That was happening when I was calling.
It probably was. Eric does seem truthful to me. I feel satisfied with the explanation he's given that accounts for his whereabouts during the time of the murder. We learned a lot at the home of Geraldine Freeman. We're now able to clear Eric Freeman, but not his brother Doug. With 5 arrest warrants on his head, it's really unlikely we're going to be able to find Doug and talk to him. So what we're going to do is bring in the co-worker who originally alibied him to see what she has to say.
Are you absolutely certain, to the best of your knowledge, that you saw Doug Freeman when you got there?
Yes, he was at work that day because he rode back with us from work.
What time was your lunch break? When did y'all usually stop and take lunch?
It's 6:30.
Could you leave the plant on your lunch break?
Yes.
Doug doesn't have a car, so in order for Doug to commit this crime, he has to have people on standby to pick him up and bring him back. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because honestly, most killers are stupid. And for Doug to pull this off over a 30-minute lunch break seems a little complicated. Did you ever hear rumors around town about what happened to Miss Louise?
Well, I heard that Markis did it, because Markis and Doug was real tight.
Markis Heard.
Yes.
You know they were tight back then?
Yeah, they was close back then. Mark used to go down his house all the time.
My grandmama house?
Yes.
So you've seen Markis going toward that house before?
Yes.
That's new.
Yes,
That's
it
new.
is. We didn't know that. So Nikki is now telling us that Markis and Doug were tight, so that gives them a direct connection to the murder. And when you heard the whole rape thing and then you heard Markis, did that shock you? Because?
He a pervert.
Okay.
You ever date Markis?
No, that's my cousin.
Oh, it's your cousin?
Yes.
Markis Heard's own cousin is pointing the finger at him, and we do know that he and Doug were friends now. That means that Doug's involvement in this murder could have been as simple as shooting his mouth off to Markis about his grandmother's money, or it could be as bad as him being directly involved in the rape and murder of his grandmother. Markis has always claimed to have an alibi, but I think it's time for us to investigate that.
Hey, how you doing? Latar, How you doing, baby?
All right.
Baby, you ain't in no trouble. Quit looking all scared and stuff. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
I need to talk to you for a few minutes. You got a few minutes?
Latoria Pittman is the center of Markis's alibi for the time of the murder. Markis claims he was at her house at the time the murder occurred. Markis Heard is currently in prison for a parole violation, so we hope that that'll make Latoria seem secure enough away from him to tell us the truth about his whereabouts at the time of the murder.
Tell me about Markis Heard.
He's my 3 daughters' father.
Okay.
He molested his daughter, though, didn't he?
Is that one of your babies?
I have no contact with him now.
Latoria, and it says in your statement that on the actual day that Miss Kellum was killed, Markis showed up at your house at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You remember that?
Because I got my daughter off the bus at 2:30 and went down to my mother's house to get some trash bags.
Okay, and you had your daughter with you? And where was Markis at this time?
On the porch.
Why did Markis go with you?
Because my mama don't like him.
According to your statement, you come home sometime around 5 or 6, so you stayed there about 3 hours at your mother's house.
And I was trying to wait him out to leave.
Wait him out to leave. Okay.
And now, how sure are you about 5:30? How do you know it's not 5 or 6?
Because I give my mama her insulin at 5:25.
Do you know where he was from the time you left till you got back?
He left there, I wouldn't know.
Okay.
This is incredible. Latoria left Markis for over 3 hours. Way more than enough time for him to have the opportunity to leave the house and come back and commit the murder.
When you got back from your mother's house, you was hoping Markis was gone. But he wasn't. He was still on the porch.
Was he all by himself?
Terry. Drama guy. Terry.
Terry Grimble is a known acquaintance of Markis Heard. And he's a liar, and he's just not a very truthful person.
Markis stayed until 9 p.m.
I couldn't get him to leave, and he got violent.
How violent? What did he do?
He pushed me, and he choked me. And after I got up from that, me and my daughter went in my room, and I locked the door.
Have you ever asked Markis anything about that night, about that day? Why not?
No, ma'am, I haven't. Because I was afraid for myself.
Markis Heard has a history of sexual deviance and violence that fits this crime to a T. If he had time to travel from his girlfriend Latoria's house to Miss Louise's house, within that 3-hour window that Latoria cannot account for, we'll have ourselves a prime suspect with motive, criminal history, and access to the crime scene.
Okay, so that's where Markis was on the porch when you left, and Markis and Terry were on the porch when you got back.
I'm gonna walk, actually. Get out and walk. All right, here I go. Start timing me now. All right, Pooch, you don't want lead poisoning.
You realize he used you that night.
I realize it now.
I really did not have any idea, Kelly, that we were talking that close to a distance.
I didn't either.
I thought we were talking 1.5 miles, 2 miles.
I did too. I thought more than that.
We're right at her door. I'm at her door.
Right under 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I had no idea it was that close. Latoria told us that on the afternoon of the murder, she could not account for his whereabouts for over 3 hours. Now that we know her home is only 5 minutes from the victim's house, Markis had plenty of time to commit the murder and return to Latoria's with time to spare. All right, let's take this lady home.
That's Terry right there.
Where?
Right up there. And that Terry walking across.
Well, let's not let him see her.
Driving Latoria home, who do we run into but Terry Trimble?
Let me holler at you.
We'll be back and pick you up, Chief.
All right. Terry, how you doing?
Latoria Pittman put Terry and Markis together the day of the murder.
Was he all by himself?
Terry. The drama guy. Terry.
Terry was with him.
Terry probably know more about this case than he's willing to let on.
No, the day it happened, I told y'all.
I went hanging with the dude at the time, but everybody talking about he the one.
Who's that?
Markis Heard.
And you're not changing your story?
My story is gonna stay the same. Everybody say I was with him. That's a lie because I know I
Markis is gonna throw you slap under that bus.
We finna put an end to this shit. We finna put an end to this. You were with Markis. We know that.
Hey,
I'll
Terry.
tell you the truth. I ain't got no reason to lie to y'all.
Okay.
You either go home or you go in Tallapoosa County Jail. Now, what do you want it to be? Now, you got an option. What do you want it to be?
Be the witness, not the defendant.
What do you want it to be?
All right, look, Roosevelt, I'm gonna tell you like this. I can't remember that far back. I'm just telling you I don't know.
We know you can't remember anything. Hell, you've been smoking crack, pot, and every damn thing else. But just try somehow remember that 7 or 8-year-old lady. Put that in your mind and say, look, I'm gonna help them because of her. Not because of him, not because of him, not because of me, but because of her. She's a victim. Remember that.
Terry Trimble isn't giving us anything. Is that because his brains are fried or he's cold as ice? Who knows? But we don't have to tell Markis Heard that. We're going to pay Markis Heard a visit in prison where he's currently serving time for a parole violation.
Markis! What's up, Dad?
Our plan is to bluff Markis with an admission from Terry Trimble to see if he'll break.
Do you remember back in 2005 you gave a statement of a woman's death that died there in Camp Hill? Okay. That day, did you stay at Latoria's place all afternoon?
Oh, I did.
Okay. Did Latoria ever leave and go somewhere that afternoon?
She probably walked down the hill to her mother's house.
Okay. Did you ever leave that night?
I think I went to the store. I know I had some bills.
Okay.
I probably did.
So, did Terry come over there?
No.
Did you know where Miss Kellum lived?
Yes.
Had you ever been to her house?
Never.
You ever go up in her yard? How long a walk is it, Markis, from Latoria Petron's place to Miss Kellum's place?
About 5, 6 minutes.
At the most.
What if we told you that Terry put you in that house?
Man, come on, man. He lied.
You think he's lying?
I know for a fact he lied.
Also, a phone call came from that house to your girlfriend at the time Miss Kellum was killed. You're a burglar. You're not a murderer. Something went wrong in a burglar. Very wrong.
This is your opportunity, Markis.
It's your opportunity to tell us what happened.
Help yourself.
It wasn't me.
Markis Heard could possibly be a sociopath. He sexually molested his own 5-year-old daughter. He didn't care who he hurt. He didn't have any feelings or empathy with other people. That's the toughest type of person to get to confess to anything.
Today, the DNA results are finally coming back from Sorensen Lab. Markis Heard and Doug Freeman, they're both still strongly on our suspect board. So it would be wonderful if we could get some DNA back to tell us something about who committed this murder.
Hello. How are y'all doing this morning?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Got these lab results.
Is that everything? No piecemeal? It's all there?
We'll see.
I hope this is good news.
Okay, the cord found around her neck. They could see DNA, but it's below the threshold.
Wow.
Whatever they got is just not working.
Okay.
Which means it's inconclusive. It won't go anywhere for us. The sexual assault kit, the vaginal swabs, they do come back to Louise.
That's all?
It's basically inconclusive. There isn't anything else on that part.
So basically, at this point, we don't have anything really good.
Well, we have her underwear, where there's a few stains that were detected on the underwear. In fact, 3 stains on her underwear, and they all come back to... Oh, my God. Markis Heard.
Oh, God. Finally.
Girl.
Finally.
This is a slam dunk.
You're going to eat some crap! Ellen, what do you have to do now?
I'll eat all the crap you got. I have given Yolanda so much flack for all of her DNA results, and now she's finally gotten to prove me wrong because Sorensen came back with results to the tune of 1 in 3.64 quadrillion. Confirmation that we have our killer, and we could not be any happier. Chief, what you thinking?
That's a monster.
Yes.
That's a monster. Let's get with the DA.
Yeah. There's no arguing with DNA evidence. We have Markis Heard's DNA on the underwear of our victim. We know who committed this crime.
Thank you, Jesus. Now to have this completed is, words can't describe it.
It's just a deep satisfaction at knowing I was able to help that woman.
Finally, justice for Miss Kellum.
That's right.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good
morning. All right.
We made some progress,
Right.
so we want to update you on everything.
I want to hear about it.
So far, DNA is just outstanding.
And here's what you'll appreciate as a prosecutor. The likelihood of any other person being the contributor to that semen DNA is 1 in 3.64 quadrillion.
Bigger numbers than I can write.
Biggest ones I've ever seen.
I think we got a good case.
If he gets out, somebody will get hurt there in Camp.
He's not about to get out, I can assure you that.
Even though Markis Heard is currently serving time in prison, he could have gotten out in about 7 years. Now he'll be indicted for capital murder.
He got to it.
It couldn't have turned out any better.
I'm so excited. It feels wonderful that I can say to the family, there is closure. Miss Louise was someone that was in my corner, regardless to what the circumstances were. She believed in me.
I'm happy.
Yay, that's all good. You know, talking to the victim's family members after a case is always kind of bittersweet. On one hand, you want to tell them the good news, that justice is finally going to come. On the other hand, they have to listen to all the details of the horrible crime that happened.
Well, I have some good news for you.
Okay.
Very good news. We know who killed your mom.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Definitively, no uncertainty.
No doubt.
Hallelujah.
To the odds of 1 in 3.64 quadrillion people.
Okay.
One person. That monster Markis Heard.
Oh, Lord.
So we think you probably went into the house to find some money for dope, and maybe your mom came home a little too early. What are you thinking?
Well, I just feel sad for his mom and his dad, but I feel joy for our family because I know this is over. It's closure.
It's
and
justice.
I'm thankful. We got justice for Mama. Hallelujah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, she's probably jumping around in heaven saying, thank you, Lord. It's over. It's finished. We got justice for you, Mama.
What are you thinking, Cameron?
Pleased to hear resolution of something that's been so very old, but something that you think about and you won't ever let it go. It is helpful and certainly refreshing and wonderful to know that no one in our family did this. But if it had been, justice still needed to be done. And we thank you and certainly Chief Finley.
You should know that the chief picked up his phone, and if he didn't know him, he knew somebody who knew him. And they all call him Roosevelt. We didn't tell you this story. Somebody told us Miss Louise would say, Roosevelt, you think you're the baddest man in this town, but you're not, I am.
About a lot of conversations you and I've had over the years. And what did I tell you?
You said you working on it, and you gonna try to find out who killed Mama.
And I never give up.
That's right. You would never give up, and he didn't.
Miss Kellum is looking down from heaven saying, good job, Roosevelt.
Yolanda, Dee Dee, and Kelly have been a great inspiration in my life and put me in a great opportunity to learn more about how to work the unsolved cases that I am currently working on. And hopefully we'll get some positive results. And always remember, I got some good friends I can call now for assistance.
Very nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you, too. Thank you.
You're very welcome, baby. I'm so happy that this town can finally heal. Markis Heard will be convicted, hopefully, and go to prison and spend the rest of his life there.